Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Topbin90 Podcast. This is episode 5. I've got my two main men with me today. I got Bam Brian Maurer Media, also known as Charlottean Brian. Now, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, man. Just all unpacked. Not all of my clothes unboxed. That's why I'm just wearing my regular long tee today. But I'm ready to rock and roll, man. It was nice to have like a 35-minute drive rather than like an hour and a half drive. So
yeah,
I'm locked and loaded, man. I'm ready to go.
Awesome. And then we have Mr. Lee from CLTFC Fan TV, who promised me he would be here every Monday and then just decided to dip for a month. Yeah. What happened, bro?
Well, you know, man, kids, they sort of rule your life sometimes. Have to take them to the soccer practice, you know. You know what I'm talking about over there, hiding in the corner. But yeah, see? But no, man, congratulations on moving to the real Queen City, man. At least you didn't make it to that fake one that came in town last week.
Speaking of the fake Queen City, we'll talk about that tonight. Some of our topics, we'll recap that FC Cincinnati game. Some of the questions we have is that one. Another one is, I want to see how you guys assess these first 6 games under Deansmith. Are you noticing a playing style, stuff like that? Also, who is the designated penalty taker? We'll go into that. Another question I have is a creative player more of an immediate need right now than a left-footed center back? Those are kind of the positions that we're looking at. And then we have 2 subscriber questions. One from Conductor Main wants to know, how long do we give a DP time to get acclimated and really shine and become a true leader of this squad? And another question from Evan, which I really like this question. What fan favorite player do you guys see taking the biggest minute cut this season? Ooh, that's a really good one. But let's start off with the FC Cincinnati, Charlotte FC, the Battle of the Queen Cities, where we drew 1-1 at home. 3 games at the bank. We're undefeated here, you know. So, I mean, it was a positive result, I would say, overall. You know, 1-1 against last year's Supporter Shield winners. They are still undefeated this season as well. We converted a penalty finally. 3 games, 3 home games, and 3 penalties, 3 different penalty takers. And finally somebody slots one in with Diani. We saw the debut of Liel Abada coming in at minute 60. And then a little flashback to last season where we concede a late goal. I think it was Boapenza that scored, right? Yeah. The flick by Yedlin was nice for that goal. Yeah. I gotta say, you know, the Battle of the Queen City ended 1-1. I'll start off with you, Lee. Yep. What are your thoughts on this game?
You know, overall, I the boys played good all game. I thought, it just, like you said, it kind of the remnants of last year. It's like, oh no, is it creeping back in? Are we doing that again? But I don't know. I mean, if you would tell me it was 1-1 at the beginning of the game, I would, like before it started, I would have taken it. I mean, we keep saying it over and over again. 4 points out of the last 2 games. I would have taken that all day long. So now what? We're undefeated 12 at the bank in a row.
Yeah.
You know, so we should, not to talk about next week already, but I feel confident going into New England. But yeah, I think the boys played well. The back line played well. I mean, I think it was just that last 5-10 minutes, man, it was like Cincinnati finally got into the game. And, for the overall, I think, man, everybody, I'm really excited for this team.
Yeah, Brian, talk to me about Liel Abada's first 30 minutes for Charlotte FC. I mean, that's a player that we've been waiting for at a young DP, right? The first 30 minutes, what did you notice from him?
Yeah, I mean, I think we saw some of his explosiveness. I mean, he had a couple opportunities to kind of get in behind. Obviously, the time he came on, it was going to kind of dictate, some of that, because Cincinnati is going to be pushing forward, trying to find that equalizer, opening up space in behind, which also, Enzo found him a couple times, which I think helped out, helped show that combination between the two of them as well, that there's some potential there. But we also didn't really get to see him take a lot of shots. We didn't see a ton
I think he had one.
Yeah, so we didn't really get to see. I think once he gets a start, we'll really get to see but it was just nice to see him come out, get the energy of the crowd behind him a little bit,
right?
See that enthusiasm for a new record signing. I think that's the biggest sort of takeaway from it. There's more to be revealed from him, and I think we just got to kind of You know,
I also love like that first progressive explosive run that he made.
Yeah.
Right where he got that foul. I really loved how like
Yep.
Ashley Westwood came and just grabbed him and was like let's go.
Yeah.
Such a good captain, man.
He's such a good captain. And
Shout out,
speaking
happy
of that,
birthday.
man. Yeah, happy birthday to Ashley Westwood, where I'm sure he's listening. He's waiting for this episode to drop. Don't you worry, Ashley. It's coming out. Yeah, and I mean, speaking of him, too, he had a great ball that he gave Kerwin right at the beginning of the match, right, where unfortunately Kerwin skies it. And, I mean, we did an article today, you know, on – this is a shameless plug to Sam's article, right, that will be dropping every Monday, the stock ups and stock downs in terms of players. And we've seen kind of the stock go down in guys like Kerwin Vargas and Enzo Capetti. Because at the end of the day, man, what's truly going to define you in those forward positions, in the winger position, is goals and assists.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if we're not scoring right, then that's a problem. You know, 6 goals scored so far this season, 6 different goal scorers, and no goal from Enzo and no goal from Kerwin Vargas.
Yeah, and I think the other big stat there is Kerwin had 7 shots, none of them even on target, and a lot of headers in the box. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Lila Abada comes into the team. How does the winger position shake up around him? And we discussed Kerwin being a different style of player than Yuri Tavares. Tavares has shown that he is dangerous in and around the box, both on the corner kick and the home opener when he got that header that went off the crossbar before Milanda put it away for the goal. Yep. And then he also crashed the box on Capetti's dummy against Vancouver and slotted it home. So we see him crashing the box and being goal dangerous. And Kerwin had like 7 opportunities in those kind of situations where he was, and it just seemed like that was a moment where if Tavares was actually the winger there, the way the game was being played, he might have been able to slot one of those away. That's his style of play. He's a kind of winger that crashes into the box and is goal dangerous. Shows that he's also an aerial threat, which I haven't really ever seen from Kerwin as much.
Right.
And he showed that kind of like lack of just ability this last game. I mean, he couldn't find the target, both with his head or when in a 1v1 situation. The amount of 1v1 situations this team has had and PKs, if you were to tell just a neutral and be like, hey, man, we're averaging about 1 to 2 1v1s a game.
A penalty at home every game.
Right? And if you told that to a neutral, they'd be like, oh, man, you guys are probably like close to the league lead in terms of goals, like 10, 12 goals, because you're also going to get some lower quality shots as well. That'll go in. But, I mean, the fact that they've only gotten 1 goal from 3 PKs and at least 7 or 8 1v1s so far this year is I think that's the huge change that just has to happen.
Yeah,
obviously,
conversion, right? I mean, like for the amount of possession that we hold, the XG is there, which to me is surprising, right? And also another thing that I've noticed is we truly haven't identified that creative player, right? I mean, we tried Petkovic this weekend in that 10 role, right? We've seen Scott Arfield, we've seen Brett Deyagade, right? And Deyagade was actually on the wing this game. So what did you guys notice there in terms of Petkovic in his first start?
Go ahead, man.
I mean,
that's a lot.
He had some moments. He didn't have a lot of touches, which has continuously been the issue with that 10 position. Whether it's Deyagade there, he hasn't been getting a lot of touches at the 10. Neither has Petkovic in this last game. I mean, I think that was probably part of the reason why he was taken off after 60 minutes. Obviously, Dean wanted to find a way to get Leo Labata on the field in front of that home crowd.
Right.
That also dictated part of it, but if he had been getting his touches and been helping dictate play and pulling the strings, he would have stayed on. But because he wasn't, he was pulled at 60 minutes. So that's just going to be somebody has to start finding a way to get touches and helping move the ball forward. Because right now what's happening is Jere Urunen, Westwood, and Diani are pretty much pulling all the strings. And you can see by the key passes, Jere Urunen led the team in key passes this last week. And that's a problem. If your left back is leading your team in key passes, that's an issue. And so you've got to find a way to get whoever's playing in that role, getting touches, finding a way to involve themselves in the game. It's harder for a younger player. A lot of time, if he hasn't had a lot of experience at this level, finding a way, how do I force myself into the game? That's a situation. If he gets another chance, he's going to have to figure out how to do that. Just be like, I'm going to force my way into getting into this game, getting the touches I need to help, progress play and be involved in the game. So that's just what he has to going to have to try.
I mean, like key moments that stick out to me of key passes being given for goal opportunities come from either Ashley Westwood or Diani, who gave last weekend against Columbus Crew Pat's Pat's first goal and the second goal of the game came from the Deani pass. And I want to specifically, let's highlight him a little bit, too. He's come in and been phenomenal.
Deani,
2 games, 2 men of the matches, right? Yeah. We needed somebody to convert a penalty. Calm, cool, collective. I mean, this is when you're adding in signings, right? Especially in an area like the midfield, right? Where now it seems to be overpopulated by 8s, in my opinion, right? We truly don't have that 10 yet. For him to come in and just slot in and he can play the 6, he can play the 8, right? I mean, it's a player that has really upgraded our midfield. And we haven't even talked about Junior Urso, who we're pretty high on, who was slotting in right from the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, to Brian's point, I mean, it's good to see some of the younger players coming through too, though, right? They're getting their minutes, they're getting their touches. What was that? Was that his second game he's actually played, or was it Petrovic, or was that it?
Second?
Yeah, so I mean, for Dean to feel comfortable to put him in as starting, I think that's awesome for him, and just showing that he will rely on those younger players as well. I mean, Enzo's just needs a goal. Right? I mean, we've been saying this since last season, though. This man, he doesn't seem to want to shoot. He's scared to shoot. Just pull the trigger. Yeah. Right? And then Vargas is doing the same shit he did last year, in my opinion, too. He does all the hard work, and then when it comes down to that final kick of the ball, right, he just shoots it up. It's lean over, do something, right? Practice, for lack of better terms, those where they burn the grass or whatever. Just
worm burner.
Yeah, worm burner. Yeah. But for real, it's but then it's what I found interesting today, you was talking about a 10 or what do we do with Enzo, is I thought maybe it was you that posted it or somebody else, but Abada said he doesn't mind playing striker. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of opens up some things for us there, right? I mean, we can keep the wingers and put him up there and see what he can do.
So definitely when I look at our striker positions, right, I mean, we've got a guy like Patrick Agyemang who has taken his opportunity, right? I mean, I think he's done better with the chances that he's getting, right, versus Enzo. Mm-hmm. But to me, Enzo's build-up play is better, 100%. Right? The problem is with a DP, I feel like I just keep reiterating, he needs the goals. Yeah. That's the reality.
He just needs a
goal,
That
is what you get paid for, that DP money to put in goals. And when you're not scoring, you're going to get criticized.
Yeah. Another thing to add on to the lack of goals, I think he also just needs to become undeniable. Right, I think the fact, and this is something else that was in Sam's article. Again, shameless plug to his stock up, stock down. But part of the reason why I think Enzo is a stock down is just the fact that it's even a conversation, that he's in a competition 100%. With a super draft pick is a problem. Right, just the fact that you're even in the conversation. I go back to, for anybody out there who watched the Atlanta game on Sunday.
Yeah, I know that's bro. Oh
so
my God.
Well, so he scored, right? But then he's also subbed off by the backup Jamal, who scores a
twice.
Brace.
Yep.
But if you see Yakumakis, they pan out to him. He's celebrating like crazy, right? And the reason he can do that is because he is undeniably the starter. It doesn't matter. I mean, now
that's a good point.
Would Enzo celebrate? Yeah, probably because he still wants to win. But at the same time, if Agyemang were to come in and score a brace, that's a real issue when it comes to his job, right? I mean, there's no way about it, because for right now, I mean, Enzo's not playing undeniable. It's just not at that level. Yeah. And so that's where the difference is as well. Besides the goal contributions, you have to be able to see hey, there's a significant difference between when Enzo's out there. And in this last game, Agyemang and Petkovic were the starters in the 10 and the striker, and that was the best, most XG, most shots they've had, I think, this season. And so the fact that Agyemang and Petkovic can fill those roles, I mean, it shows that the other attacking options aren't undeniable right now.
Exactly. When the level of quality doesn't change, like you're mentioning, that's a problem.
Or it even gets better. I mean, it even got better in this last game against Cincinnati, who's they have 3 U.S. men's national team players on that back line.
Yep.
Yeah. No, Enzo should have just taken that first penalty that missed at the beginning of the season, man. I think it would have been a whole other story, man.
Speaking of penalties, right?
DP, right? Designated
penalty taker, right? I mean, I asked.
We're lacking DPs.
Yeah.
On the presser last Thursday, I asked Deansmith, right, who would take the penalty. He jokes, the way that Dean doesn't answer a question or doesn't want to answer a question for you is he'll make a joke first. He's funny. I absolutely love Deansmith. Yeah. But okay, now I know that when he responds with some sort of like
sarcasm,
I know he's not really gonna answer a question, and that's fair,
right?
You know, he's got all his right to. Because I asked him who would take the penalty. He said we've been practicing and we think we know who it is, right? I asked him again, is Deani the penalty taker this weekend? And I forgot, I can't remember, but it was sarcasm again that he brought up, right? And I mean, he kind of left it open. So to me, is it Deani? Is he going to be our designated penalty taker? Is it going to be Enzo? Because the problem is Enzo hasn't been on the field for those other two penalties, right? He was only there for Kerwin's penalty, which he gave to him.
Yeah.
And so the question becomes, do we need to know who the designated penalty taker is, or does it need to continue to be this rotation from what it seems like from our perspective, where it could be Deani, it could be Enzo, it could be whoever's practicing the best this weekend?
I think it needs to be one player, right? Maybe if there was like 2 or 3 in a game, you know, you would rotate then just because of the, you know, the mindset of the keeper. And case in point on that is, you know, England World Cup when Kane took 2, right? He missed the second one. But no, I think inside the team itself, they need to have a designated penalty taker, and that just needs to be your guy. If he's on the pitch, he's taking it. I mean, you know, ideally you would think it would be Enzo, right? Because but at the end of the day, you know,
I was confident that we had one. I was like, okay, it's probably Enzo, right? And then after that, it's got to be, I would have said, maybe an Ashley Westwood, right? Yeah. But given the fact that Yuri was given a penalty to try out, lets me know that was something that they were like, okay, we don't truly know who the real penalty taker is or who the backup to the penalty taker is. And to me, that's a little bit of an issue, right? I mean, obviously, if we've missed 2 out of 3.
Yeah. I think if it's not Deani at this point, the only other person I'd really like to see in it is just Enzo getting a chance to, like you said, kind of open his bank account, get that kind of going.
Confidence,
That's the only other name I can see that would like really make sense as to why you would keep rotating. But if Deani drills it like he did, why would you go away from the?
No, you just keep it. You keep what's working.
So if both Enzo and Deani. Hypothetically, you would give it to Deani?
Yeah, why not? I mean, he's already taken one in front of the crowd too, right? And I would consider that to be a pressure moment.
Yeah, for
sure. And he stepped up and, I mean, he knocked it right down the middle and got it on target.
I don't know.
We just got a penalty on target. That's for improvement in itself.
I see what you're saying, but I think from a confidence level, I would want Enzo to take it.
Yeah, but Enzo had his chance, though. He had his chance to take that penalty he gave
didn't
to Vargas.
Take it, so
he had the chance.
But
he had the
didn't
opportunity.
Take it.
Why not?
Because he was trying to be a good person, right?
Of course. Yeah.
You know, versus last year, one of the things I liked about Swiderski was like, nah, I don't care if you're on a hat trick. I don't care. I'm taking this penalty.
That's what I'm saying. He should have stepped up and taken it then. If you're going to turn it down then, I think now just is the honest.
Nah, especially how his season's going, I got to disagree. I would give it to Enzo to – if he misses it, okay.
Then what? If he misses it, then what? We should have given it Deani?
Then we'll know.
We're just giving it to Deani, and when he misses it, we'll give it to Enzo.
Yeah. I'm fine with either. I guess I'll just kind of be PC between both of y'all. But I think I would be fine with either of them. If the reasoning is giving it to Enzo is like, hey, we want to really get him going, that's fair. If you also like Deani drilled it, we're keeping with him. I think that's also fair. Now the question would be like if for some reason some wild card and it's like somebody else taking like Jere Urunen. Now I could see him drilling it as well because he seems like a real baller. But it's just weird that it would keep rotating. I think that's my question is like, why is it rotating? Most teams have a guy who they just count on to to step up in those moments. Charlottefc even in the past 2 years have had a guy, whether it was Karol Swiderski in 2023 or Christian Fuchs in 2022. They just had a guy who would just step up and drill it, and they never had missed until this year. And this is the year when it seems more in flux.
I mean, the 2 of the 3 penalty takers weren't even here last year. Like Yuri just got into the team and took a penalty. Deani just got into a team and took the penalty. I was expecting an Ashley Westwood or a Breck to grab that ball because, you know, they're kind of the leaders. They're kind of been around the block.
I thought Ashley was actually going to take it this week.
Yeah, me too.
I was like, he's going to step up, and then right at last minute he handed it off. But, I mean, case in point about Enzo, and I'll quit harping on him. I said I think it was even on this podcast. He needed to score early in the season, get one open, and keep going, right? And he had the perfect opportunity to kickstart his season off with a goal, and he decided he wasn't going to take it. So you read that how you will. I think that lacks confidence, in my opinion, but there we go.
I don't know. I don't think it lacks confidence. I think he was trying to be a good guy, and it's kind of backfired on him in terms of what we're expecting.
You can read it that way. But, again, anybody else, I think, would have just taken that ball, stepped up and said, Vargas, this is my time, man, and this is what I'll get paid to do.
But even if he is trying to be a good guy, there's you want good people on your team and good teammates. True. Your goal scorers also need to be a bit selfish,
yes.
right? There's an element where there's also you have them be good teammates, but you're also it's a results-driven business.
100%.
And a part of that is goal scoring. And if you're gonna be the guy, you got to demand the ball, and that's true. I mean, you see that happening across the board. I mean, Messi always. I mean, he seems like a really nice guy, good teammate. But if you don't give him the ball around the box and he doesn't get a touch on the ball during an attacking sequence of play, Messi will let you know, hey, what are you doing? I'm the guy.
For real.
And that's not even just Messi. That's across the board. Any team, Lucho does it. We saw Lucho do that multiple times this last week. He's like, why aren't you giving me the ball? I'm the guy. What are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
But nobody questions that, though, right?
No,
because they know that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
There's no question in it.
Yeah.
He's the production guy.
Yeah. Everybody was scratching their head when Enzo handed off to Vargas, but and then anyways.
Fair.
You're I'm trying not to harp on him.
Yeah, I don't want to harp on Enzo, man. I hope you score, Enzo. If you listen to any of this, man, I hope you score. Open up your account and just run it up this year.
For sure. I want to talk to you guys about how you assess these first 6 games under Deansmith. Are you noticing a style of play? One of the things that sticks out to me so far, 6 matches, 6 goals, 6 different goal scorers, 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. 5 out of the 6 games that we've played, we've been outpossessed, right? And, I mean, even against Columbus Crew with an extra man, we were still outpossessed. I think the game we had more possession was Vancouver, and that was 51-49. So it wasn't something that was amazing, right? So that's interesting to me, given how much we create as well, right? I mean, obviously we can create more. You and I had this debate on your show a while back, right? And then another thing is just how solid we look defensively. I mean, we've been operating the same back 4 virtually every game, except that one game where Joao Pedro stepped in because Yere was just coming back from international duty, right? So, I mean, some of these things that have stood out to me, and I want to ask you, I guess I'll start off with you, Brian. What are you noticing under Deansmith, specifically style of play?
Vertical. I mean, I think that's been one of his main words is being willing to be direct and vertical with the ball. Who's going to get out there and help me progress, move that ball forward? I think that's a big reason why Diani's been in and Junior Urso has taken a step back. Actually, Carl from Queen's Pitch mentioned this last week. They talked a little bit on their show about progressive passing. From Diani specifically, and I think that's a big part of one of the reasons why he's out there now is he's actually helping move the ball forward and being way more direct with it. Same reason why Deansmith mentioned in the presser about Kerwin Vargas, why he wants him on the right, even though everybody's why he seems so much stronger on the left. And he mentioned specifically, I think he's more direct on the right. So these are just kind of the things that Deansmith seems to be talking about is who's going to be direct, moving the ball forward as quickly as possible, and that's also why you're seeing less possession as well. It's just every time they get the ball, it's about getting forward and going to goal and trying to get that's also why you see the higher XG. You're seeing higher quality chances. Not quite as many, I'd say. I mean, I think that's still definitely an issue. Not in this last game. They had 16 shots, but overall, the amount of chances haven't really increased all that much. The quality has at times. They've had a lot of 1v1s and PKs. But I think that's the main thing, style of play-wise. I think personality-wise, what he's done is he's gotten back to, the scientific term is getting back to first principles. And I think that's really what he's done. He's hey, let's get back to just keeping it simple. You got a 4-man back line. They play in their positions.
Yeah.
They stay there, right? You have your double pivot who kind of helps rotate. They rotate with the ball, with the field tilt. They rotate, and that way everything's really kind of
we've seen Ashley higher, we've seen Diani higher sometimes, right?
Right. The depth chart seems locked in. I've been, building a depth chart for the last 3 years, and it's actually easy to keep up with because it's like, okay, when this guy's out, this guy's in. It's like really systematic. So he just kind of gotten the team calmed down, getting the basics down. I think so. Those are the main two things. I think direct vertical play, and then just kind of getting back to first principles. Like, hey, you're a right back, you play right back. You're a left back, you play left back.
That.
And then
Imagine that. That shit works, man. That actually works.
It does. I also think. I mean, last year one of the things that I noticed under Latanzi is that we were competitive in a good amount of games still, regardless of how you feel his coaching style. Right, we were competitive. This year, we still remain competitive. And to be honest, we've gotten, luckier, which I think that was something that was kind of...
But you create your own luck.
Yep.
Right, but that's fair. You create your own luck. But I still think that, I don't even know, you just kind of...
Threw you off.
Yeah, you threw me off with that.
My bad, man. I'll answer your question that you asked to Brian.
Yeah.
I think Dino, like you said, is way more direct, right? And you kind of see that style of play. I personally, the boys have obviously bought into the system, and it's different. Last year it was like, oh, we lost, we could do better. This year it's like, damn, we really lost, or we dropped points there, right? Like it seems to take more of a toll on them this year if there's a draw and a loss versus like last year. It was just kind of like, we'll do all right next game. But it's like, I don't know, man. It just feels fresher. It seems faster. You mentioned about the possession, right? Last year, even if we were on a fast break, we would slow down and start knocking around the back. This time, we're more.
If we weren't tapping it in the final third, then it wasn't going to count. I guess in Latanzio's terms, he wanted, I don't know, this Man City. Yeah. He wanted, I don't know, Brand to turn into Kevin De Bruyne.
Yeah. And but still, I still think we sort of lack that creativity at the top, man. I mean, we are getting more chances. Yes, we are. Yeah. But it's not because of the link-up play. It's more like quick down the wings, that sort of thing. We need something to happen in that attacking midfield.
And I also think if we were more clinical, if Kerwin or Enzo were a little bit more clinical, 100%. We would kind of be bypassing this, where...
Well, it'd be overlooked for sure.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be as highlighted as it is now.
Yeah, he's also focused on. I mean, clearly you saw this when he was mic'd up in preseason, defending the wings. I feel like they're defending the wings generally a lot better. We saw the one time they got exposed. I think it was against Nashville when they got exposed a little bit on their defensive wing play. But overall, I think they focused on defending the wings better, and then also set pieces. I mean, the amount if you look at their XG they're getting from set pieces and their ratio, it's like. They're close to leading the league in terms of just the amount of
we've done a 180
volume
from last year.
Yeah, so on the set pieces, it's a huge improvement. You can tell that's a big part of how Dean believes in play. I mean, again, that comes from the directness of play, right? If you get the ball down the field and you either rip a shot or just find a way to get it in the attacking third, you can. Worst case scenario, the ball gets out of play and you get a corner, and then you try to figure out a way to take advantage of that as well. And I think that's another big part of his style of play, because if you're taking corners, you're not having to defend, and you're in the attacking side.
But I mean, at the beginning of the season, we were wondering what kind of team we were going to be, right? Yeah. But now, that 6 games in, now we can kind of sort of assess it. I'm not scared to play anybody.
Yeah.
I think we could hang with anybody.
We can, especially at home.
Yeah, at home easy.
Yeah,
but even on the road, we haven't been embarrassed.
Yeah, I think Nashville, we could have been better, especially that first half.
Well, that's fair. I mean, but still.
But yeah.
But overall, I don't know if that's necessarily a Deansmith change directly in terms of playing at home. I mean, we're talking about them being on a 12-game unbeaten streak,
with only 3 more,
and only 3 of them are Dean,
so
9 of them Latanzio. Yeah. So I feel like that we don't know. We can't say.
It's the 12th man,
that first half in Vancouver really showed me, this team can go away and actually dominate, right? Part of that was, Vancouver style of play, that first half, right? Yep. Where they kind of gave us the ball, but part of it is also, you have to have the confidence, you have to have the ability to go into an away match and create that. So
Now I think a big question that'll get answered over the next several games is going to be whether or not Deansmith's style of play is gonna work. So one thing that Charlotte has had an issue with is they'll oftentimes show up in the big moments, like against we just saw at home, Columbus Crew, Cincinnati come into Charlotte, they show up. They did that even back in 2022. Philadelphia came to town. They beat them 4-0, right? So they show up in the big games, but it's like, hey, when we have a favorable stretch, Charlotte FC has tended to drop points there, right? And so the next 6 or 7 games are all really winnable matchups, right? If you look at their schedule, it's like New England. New England hasn't won. They got 1 point in 5 games, right? So they're just really, really, really struggling. It's kind of crazy, right? And then Toronto at home. And then
Minnesota at home. Then New York away, Portland at home, and Nashville at home.
So if they're not stacking points, right, we're kind of in the same boat as they were before, because this has been the issue the last 2 years for Charlotte FC.
Absolutely.
Like when they don't, it's those moments when we're like, oh man, we're like, now we're 8 games away from the end of the season. We had so many opportunities to pick up points in the easier part of our schedule, and now we got to play, right, like Miami twice, all these different things that kind of came up last year. It was like, hey, there are opportunities to not be in this situation, and like this next stretch of games is one of those, right?
100%.
How does Deansmith get this team to show up and actually stack? I'm thinking, like, if they don't stack like 14, 15, 16 points, like a serious number of points, like that, otherwise we're kind of still in the same boat as they were in the past.
For
so
sure,
I think this is the moment.
That's another kind of like marker that you can make between Latanzio and Deansmith after these 6 games, right? Because you're right. Like, I remember that first season, we went on that stretch near the end. We're like, we're in it all of a sudden. We can finish 7th, right? And then we were just out of it, right? And then the same thing last year, those highs, like you beat Miami at home, but then like you lose to, I can't remember.
Red Bulls.
Yeah, exactly. You get destroyed 5-2.
Chicago at home.
Yeah.
So these are the moments. These are the moments.
All right, I want to specifically focus on the center back pairing of, Andrew Privet and Adilson Malanda.
Say
for
his
me,
name again.
Have shown me that, okay, we can run with these guys for the rest of the season, in my opinion. Right? 22-23, they look great. Andrew has had some great games. Has come clutch for us. Adilson Malanda, we know the quality that he provides, right? So to me, 2 of the positions that they talked about, a left-footed center back and another creative player. For me now, hey, the immediate need is that creative 10, that line-breaking player, that guy that has the technical ability in those tight spaces that can be a connector to increase that XG, quote-unquote, right? That becomes more of a need than finding another center back right now, right? So in terms of priorities, for me, it becomes that versus another center back. So I wanted to touch on that with you guys and where you see that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was calling it out after the game. I was like, and I even text you, right? I was like, man, there's a name that nobody's screaming or saying anymore or ever was Privet. Like some of his plays and just reading the game this weekend was just incredible. And I think the back 4 as a whole,
100%
solid, right? And we've actually got some depth there now with now the Malanda and Privet sort of working well together, in my opinion, right?
And you got a guy like Toloma who's experienced, that could come in. You have Joao Pedro that can fit in a center back or a left back, right? He came in as left back and looked great. We haven't even seen Jalen, right?
So I think the depth is there on the back part of it. Like you said, though, the biggest concern, and I think it just amplifies it even more, is that 10, right? Somebody has to step up and be that creative player in that final
I think
third.
It's very telling when you see Deansmith try out Brecht and then try out Scott and then try out Petkovic, that he truly doesn't have that guy just yet.
But no, I just want to give kudos again to Privet, man. I think nobody says his name, and I think that's great since he's a defender. But, I just don't think the man gets the accolades that he deserves.
No, he probably stops about a goal a game, I feel like, in terms of just like whether it was, he had a match-winning tackle against New York City at home in the opener where he just stopped a 1v1 from happening. Caleb, you saw the post he made where he stopped like 2 or 3 chances in like a minute against Cincinnati. And he's doing that about every game. He's blocking a shot that's looks like a really clean opportunity. He did it against, I know for sure, Toronto, because I mentioned a post to it in our subscribers group chat about that. Just like I feel like he's saving at least a goal a game, and he's definitely not allowing a good chance a game. So he's really, in terms of that metric, just he's stopping a lot of opportunities, and he's not allowing them. He's not making a lot of mistakes. And so it's just, his performance has been spectacular.
Also, you have to point out that he was not a natural center back.
No, he's not. He's a defensive midfielder, I believe, right?
Yeah, midfielder. I I think that was a great find by Latanzio.
Yep,
like
for
he
sure.
left us a really good player in Andrew Privet. So shout outs to Latanzio wherever you are in the outskirts of Italy right now, enjoying some pizza.
Yeah, some pizza.
And the other thing it does is it opens up your roster flexibility tremendously. If you have a
100%.
third round draft pick as a starter, I mean, it changes the whole scope of what you can do. I mean, you see, that's what Philadelphia Union have done around their back line. Jack Elliott is a third-round draft pick, and it just opens up what they can do with the rest of their roster. And now Charlotte FC have been set up to be able to do that similarly with what Privet.
That's a perfect example, though, of like when you get your chance, you take it.
Yeah.
That's why I think I had so much like excitement to see Patrick starting.
Yeah.
Right. And I just don't feel like he stepped up to what we know he could be, at least in the last 2 or 3 games. So.
Yeah.
Again, I mean,
I think, to be fair, I feel like he's improved. I mean, he had
Patrick.
that goal he had.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a bad player, but
foot.
like it definitely hasn't said, all right, you start over Enzo, right? I don't like
yeah, for sure.
Where Privet now is locked in starter.
But I think people, I don't know, like to me, they were expecting something that like. I just don't think Patrick's there yet. He's still young. You know what I'm saying? This is only his second season.
Yeah, but
so to me, I want him to
Privet.
I want him to come in. It's a different role though, center back and a striker.
But you've been playing that position, right? That's your career line. Privet stepped in, took the chance. He's got Bill off his back now, right? He's the guy to lose the spot.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like it's more demanding as a striker than it is as a center back in terms of stepping
skill
in.
for sure, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, you want to be the guy that wants that pressure of scoring goals.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking Patrick by any means. I'm just saying this is just a prime example with Privet that when your opportunity comes knocking, you take it. Like Pedro, I think he did a brilliant job last week. Right? So we just know that, I feel more confident if something happens to our left back, then, we've got a good backup. Right, and it's just like you were saying earlier, the depth is sort of there now that I didn't think was there to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've said it from the beginning of the season. Patrick's going to be a good strike for us and is going to contribute. To me, he's still not ready to be the guy to lead the line for us.
So I don't want it to be misinterpreted that I'm saying Patrick is blah, but I'm just saying it's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
He had an opportunity, like you said, probably to lock down the starting role over these last 3 games.
Patrick?
He had one finish.
Yeah.
I mean, if he finishes that 1v1 he had this last week against Cincinnati, he had the finish to like lock in the result against Columbus. Granted, they were up a man, right, for like pretty much that whole game. But he had a chance also to really like just get out to an early lead against Cincinnati. He had that 1v1 and he missed it wide right. So if he had taken a couple of those chances and got the win, especially in those last 2 games, if he had gotten them the result with chances, I do think he probably could have locked down the starting spot at least going forward.
I agree.
I don't think he's lost it either.
No, he has for sure.
His performances definitely hasn't.
I mean, he's got a
lost
goal and an assist.
Yeah, I'm not saying
So
that.
I mean,
that
for us
he
to have
hasn't lost
6
it.
goals and he has a goal and an assist.
Yeah.
I'm just saying when your opportunity comes knocking in this sport,
Yeah.
step up and you have to take it, right? I mean, but again, I'm not saying Patrick is like throwing the towel on him.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like you were saying, when it comes down to that starting 11, make Dino think, am I putting Enzo in or am I putting Patrick in?
Well, I mean, I definitely still think Dean has something to think about there because, again, Enzo also hasn't taken his chances. So it's like Patrick is probably going to get another shot or 2. I mean, maybe not immediately. But, I mean, they both got to be licking their chops to play against New England. I mean, New England's defense
It'd be interesting to see how Abada and Enzo link up. I want to see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, if Enzo doesn't score, if Enzo gets the start against New England and he doesn't score, I mean, New England is playing at like one of the worst defensive. I mean, they're one of the worst defensive teams right now. I mean, their back line is just not there quality wise. And so, I mean, if Enzo were to start and he doesn't score in this game, I mean, yes, it's not at home, but it's about as good a setup as you could ask for. And I think that was one of the other things that Patrick Adjaman was missing. He was having, before these last 2 games at home, his starts, he hadn't gotten many. Obviously, he had just had the 2, one on the road against Nashville and one on the road last season against Columbus. And so I feel like the fact that he got 2 home starts in the more just favorable overall situations, yes, they were top-tier opposition, but just more favorable situations at home, he kind of showed a little bit more of what he can do. This is a situation where Enzo, if he were to come in and start, this is a super favorable situation for him.
Yeah.
And so if he doesn't take, and it just, whoever gets that start, has to take advantage of the situation in New England, and whoever gets that start and shows or start bench, who comes on as a sub, regardless, whoever takes advantage of that situation should probably get the starts moving forward, until they lose it. But the fact that it's a 50-50 battle, I'd really say it's close to a 50-50 right now between the two of them. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
I mean, if we had Giacomakis and Patrick Agyemang, we are starting Giacomakis,
yeah,
right?
It's not even close.
Yeah,
of course.
That's the difference. Going back to Sam's article, the whole show we're just talking about Sam's article.
Yeah,
where's Sam at?
Yeah.
well, we're also here's the other difference, right? Giacomakis came out and was like, I'm going for golden boot. Like, that's his goal for the season. Public, that's what he said. Enzo's come out and said, like, I'm gonna be a good teammate. Right? So that's kind of your difference, right? Is that like a comparable difference?
I don't know if he said it like that, but
no,
yeah.
I mean, I get your point, though. I get what
Right?
you're saying, right? That goes back to the conversation we were having earlier. He should have taken that penalty to begin with. And we could be talking about a completely different Enzo this season already. But yes, next week is definitely
Huge
it.
moment.
And shout out to Privet, man. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
I love it. All right. Speaking of, you mentioned like the link up between Enzo and Abada. We have a subscriber question here from Conductor Main. He wants to know, how long do we give a DP time to get acclimated and really shine and become a true leader of their squad? It's a very interesting question, right? Because the DP, the designated player, right? This is your player that comes in and has to make the difference, right? Okay. And to me, if they don't make the difference off the get-go with goals and assists, you have to see enough quality in this player to say, okay, I see something in there, right? If we remember Swiderski, he didn't have he had the first couple of games, it took him some minutes, then he got into a role, then kind of dipped, then went back. But for me, I saw enough in that player to say, okay, this is a DP quality striker, right? When we've seen that with other players coming in, Giacomakis, who we've talked about, Cucho, right? I mean, so to me, it's if they're not scoring right away, right, what do they add, or what kind of ability do you see in a player that you may not see in a player that has that role as a DP? And I'll pass it over to you, Brian.
Well, first and foremost, regardless of whether or not they're finding goals right out of the gate,
I guess that's position, right?
They have to look better than everybody else on the field. Like, that's first and foremost, regardless of whether or not they're actually statistically, contributing right at the end. They have to look better than everyone else, in my opinion. I mean, they just have to, when they're on the field, their presence has to be observable and noticeable right away.
Right, yeah.
Right away, right? Whether or not the final product is there, I think that's, for me, regardless of time. Like, Leo Labada, you can see a little bit of or Paintsill is another really good recent example. As soon as he got on the field at LA Galaxy, you were just like, holy smokes, dude. He looks like a glitch. Like, he looks like a glitch in a video game. It's crazy how fast he is. And so things like that have to be noticeable. You're like, okay, whether or not the goals are there yet, you're like, dude, he's going to crush. Like, you can just see it. And so I think that's one of the key factors right out of the gate. You have to see that regardless. It's the same with, like, when people were scouting Alphonso Davies when he was a kid. It's like, oh man, it took us 30 seconds to know how good he was. All you did, he's got on the field. And so that's how you got to see a DP. He has to get on the field and be like, oh yeah, he's their best player immediately. And then when it comes to, like, the goal contribution and stuff, and whether or not they're winning you games, I mean, you can't take too long. I mean, it's a results-based business. I'd say a year. I mean, we always there's like the Gauss theorem where you have your second season, that's the year you kind of pop up. Things are moving faster now in MLS. The investment is coming in. I mean, a record year this last year, and the players are producing way quicker than they have in the past, right? Because overall the academies are better. There's supportive role players that are better, so these teams are just stronger, and so DPs are having more success quicker. So I think that those big signings have to start producing more and more, because just the rest of the MLS, they're doing that. I think Abada, though, is a different sort of DP that we haven't had, though, right? I mean, I feel cautiously confident that he can come in. Maybe the first couple of games, he might not be able to, trying to figure out his teammates, but I don't know. I just, looking at his highlight reels, talking to some mates back home, our Celtic fans that followed him, they did say, like, some games he can go missing, but, like, when he shows up,
Like he makes a difference in a game. So
yeah, I don't know. For a guy like Abada in a team like Charlotte FC, right? He really has the opportunity to outshine anybody that we've had.
Yeah,
you know,
that's what I'm
especially
saying.
because Enzo hasn't done it. Vargas isn't doing it, even though Vargas isn't a DP.
Yeah.
But still, you know, from a Charlotte perspective, when it comes to scouting, we've done a really good job of finding those lower end qualities, those, you know, players that are gonna come in and do a job, or finding really good players that like nobody was expecting, right? So that mid to low tier, we've done an excellent
back to
job.
what Nick Kelly
But then
was
that
saying.
final third, or that final where you make that big investment, we
Yeah.
still haven't seen like, okay, like Swiderski was good enough.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Camille didn't make it happen. Enzo, he's trending towards, you know, not being the guy, right? So this is where I need to see, okay, Abada, specifically for where we are at in terms of a team. Hey, bro,
But this is a Dino DP.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, before the other DPs, and he said it, right? Not my DPs, right? I need to get. So, like, you know, this is where.
He's a Dino DP, but it's a player that they've been scouting for a long time.
Oh, of course, right? Yeah, but I'm just saying, right? This is one that Dino checked off on and that sort of thing. But I think he's going to. I don't think Tepper's going to throw money at it. They just need to get the right player in there, right? So like, going back to your point with, like, you know, Brian said, right? It used to be like your second season, but now it's like it needs to step up. Well, damn it, I don't want to harp on Enzo, but like this is his second season, right?
Yeah.
You know?
We've got 2,500 minutes to
Yeah.
work with in terms of what the production is, and we're still talking about him competing with the super draft pick.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
and
Well, my thing is more of, okay, Abada, the what is it called?
the level, ceiling, circle hand.
What's the word I'm looking for? The bar hasn't been set super high.
To become out and be one of the better players in Charlotte. Yeah.
I'm like, that's when the thing, like, we've seen, like, you know, players like when Shinya Shiki first came to Charlotte. I feel like that's a sin to say his name now.
Yeah.
Anyways, when he came in and, you know, scored and came in hot, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so people were judging him a lot based off of those first games, right? And wanted to see more of him because of those first games. Whether he fit the mold, right, of who should start at that time, to me, it was still questionable. I was like, he's a guy that can come in and do a job. Do I see him as a starter through and through? No.
Yeah.
But people saw that because of the way he started, right? And I think we judge guys like, you know, Enzo like that, where, okay, he still hasn't done it, right? And so to me, those first couple of games become very important. And for a guy like Abada who can come in to a team like ours, who we don't really have a guy that's
don't have, like, a
scoring, right?
star,
If
right?
6 different players have scored goals, right, and we've got 6 goals, that to me is a little bit of a problem when it comes to the production side.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, at least personally, the bar for him is double-digit goal contributions this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, like, minimum. I mean, it's just hard to not have him be. I mean, he's done that, right? So it's not like we're even asking for anything he hasn't done before.
Yeah,
It's
but
not
he's
like
done that in the best team in Scotland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's my point. That's where I was going to go.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, it's like, are you saying like assists versus
Goal
actual
contribution.
goals?
Goal
Goal contribution,
contributions.
goals and assists.
Yeah, but right? I mean, he could score 5 or 6 himself, but like if you're putting the ball through and somebody can't score a one-on-one or whatever, wants to tap it in every time.
Yeah, well, yeah. So okay. So if he has like 6 expected assists and no assists, then we'll talk
Yeah,
at
fair.
that point. Okay, he's created so many chances and they're not going in. If he creates like double-digit big chances and he only has an assist or 2, okay, fair. At that point, we'll address it as like, hey, nobody can finish, and then he's creating chances. But for me, honestly, more than anything, it seems like he's a goal scorer. I mean, he's a double-digit goal scorer. And that's not just, I mean, yes, Scotland, one thing, but also in Europa League, right? So he also has competed at some pretty high levels. So I still, double-digit goal contribution. I mean, Karol Swiderski found a way to do that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so with if
Without
you're
being
looking,
the out-and-out 9.
yeah, and at the time it was like Kamil Jóźwiak and Jordi Alcivar were his, DPs in 2022, and he still got double digits, right? So I think that's still, honestly, for me, a pretty low bar. I'm saying 10.
Yeah.
I think they need more than that. They need more than that. We're talking, I mean, 'cause when you're looking at some of these DPs that are coming in and the goal, I mean, there's like 5 players with hat tricks already.
Yep.
Right? So it's just out. I mean, some of the production we're seeing across the league, if you were looking this year specifically, the forwards are just going off.
Summer window opens up soon.
And so you just, I mean, the production has to be there.
I know. I'm just thinking.
So the production just has to really be there, and I think it has to be there sooner than later. Every DP is a little bit different
And I
circumstance.
guess that's where I was getting at.
What do
where
you
I
give
watch,
them, like 2 or 3 games though to kind
I
of
think it's
fake
just
in?
I've become more spoiled watching like an Atlanta game and seeing what Yakumakis can do.
Man.
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, like we need that here, you know.
Yeah.
And so someone with that immediate impact, we haven't had. That's the word, immediate impact, right? And so hopefully we see an immediate impact from Abada in these next couple of games because we really need that to go from 9th, where we're currently at, where you and I both said we see this team being at this year. Yeah. He can take us to that promised land of 6th.
but then on top of the immediate impact, like so Justin Miram had an immediate impact, right?
Yeah,
he had like
fair.
8 goal contributions in like 6 or 7 games.
Yeah. But we're
It also
talking
needs to be
long-term. We're talking-
maintained. It also
that's
needs
what
to be
I'm-
maintained.
yeah.
So it's got to be immediate impact and then stay at that level. Because that's the other thing that Charlotte hasn't had is like we've had some guys like, oh my God, he's got like 2 goals and 2 assists in like 5 games. We got a guy, and then like by the end of the season, he's not even starting.
I've never been on that bandwagon. I haven't said, yo, this is the guy that's gonna take us to the promised land.
BS, man. BS. I got screenshots. I got receipts. I got
Name me a
receipts.
player
Yeah,
I
look.
said.
Let me.
Swiderski was the only one, and that was enough, like I mentioned. All right, last question from our subscriber, Evan. What fan favorite player do you see taking the biggest minute cuts this season?
I think that's
so
easy.
First, let's talk about who are some of the fan favorites, right?
Bronico.
You got Brandt,
Lindsay.
Ben Bender.
Ben Bender.
Yeah.
Who else? Patrick Ajiman.
Yeah.
You know,
Jalen Lindsay.
Jalen Lindsay, Ashley Westwood, right? So these are the names that kind of stick out to me, right?
Kalina.
Yeah, I don't see Kalina as much.
Well, you say fan favorite, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
okay. I don't know. Maybe fan favorite enough.
he gets in there, right?
Yeah. So
I mean, sorry. To answer your question, I think, well, obviously we're already seeing it with Lindsay. I don't see Bronico really getting as many minutes as he did last year, even though Dino has kind of said like he's our sort of, our energized bunny. He never runs out of batteries or whatever he said. But I don't know. Like, who does Bronico come in and replace this season that's already starting?
I mean, like, we've seen Diani and Westwood, like, okay, these guys have to start, right?
Yep.
Then after Westwood or Diani, it's Urso, right?
Yep.
And then after Urso would be who? Probably Brandt then would come in then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he could see. But from what I've seen at Charlottefc, from what I've seen from Brandt Bronico, I never count him out, man.
No.
You
That
know,
boy's
never
got-
count Brandt Bronico out.
grind
You
set.
know, so I think it's going to be Ben Bender.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, we
Really?
haven't even seen him yet,
No, he's
right?
been hurt, right?
He's been hurt, but, like, where does he actually fit? Unless he comes in and becomes that 10 that Dean's
just lights it
desperately
up.
looking for,
Right.
That's where I can see him.
Could be something there.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't see that in his game.
So,
Fair.
but that was going to be the one point I was going to bring up. So if you're comparing like the Bender situation to like the Jalen Lindsay situation, I mean, at this point it seems like Byrne has locked down that right back
100%.
spot, and there's
100%.
Fullbacks were good.
and so it's-
Starting fullbacks.
The back line.
and
was
so
good.
there's
Yeah.
just no way for him to break into that role at this point. Bender has an opportunity. Like there's I mean, is it an outlier shot? For sure. Like I mean, I wouldn't bet on it happening, but it's an outlier shot. Like there's actually a role there that he could fill
Yeah.
if he can fill it. And as we talked about opportunities throughout this episode, and that's like this is Bender's
the
opportunity to do that, and whether or not he takes it. So I think at this point the difference is between like a Bronico and a Jalen, like you said. I mean, Diani and Westwood have those. I mean, Westwood for sure is like the first name on this sheet,
Well,
right?
it's
And Diani is quickly,
me, yeah.
and Diani is quickly becoming the second. Right?
Listen, 2 games, 2 men of the matches.
Yeah.
To me, like, he's a locked-in starter.
Yeah, 100%. So there's just for Bronico, Lindsay, there's just no way for them to get on the field unless Bronico decides to become the 10 out of nowhere, right? I mean,
Not
but
to say we haven't played him out of position.
we haven't
before.
played him out of position, right? But that's
Hey.
so it's just harder, for them to get on the field because they
He was playing more higher up the pitch the last couple of games last season.
It'd be interesting to see what Dino does with him, because Dino does give that man credit.
And he likes that kind of player too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, then you find him on the left wing here before too long.
Yeah, I think definitely the number one choice would be Jalen then, right, for the minutes.
I mean, I think that's already been proven though.
Right, he hasn't gotten any minutes, and he's been fit.
Yeah. But he never does anything wrong, in my opinion, when he comes on. He just does a solid job.
It's unfortunate that Nathan is in front of him, you know?
I think the difference there is just the defensive stability. I think Jalen is a better crosser of the ball than Nathan. 100%. We saw that, honestly. Nathan 100%. Burns' crossing was, like, pretty rough. This last game against Cincinnati, it was, like, not there. And I think Jalen, I mean, he had like 5 or 6 assists, I think, or close to it last season. He had a decent amount of offensive production. For me, the issue with Jalen is the defensive stability, and clearly that's a huge factor of what Deansmith's trying to do is like really stay stable. Again, back to first principles, and like part of that is like, okay, the fullbacks will get forward, but it's going to have to be more opportunistic, and you're not giving up, the space in behind to do that. And I think that's just a weakness in Jalen's game in terms of when you let him go forward, he can be super dangerous with the ball, but it's just sometimes the spots he picks to go forward leaves gaps in behind, and that's just where he's kind of fallen off behind Nathan in that category.
For sure. And then lastly, we'll just quickly get into this game against New England. I mean, like you mentioned, we have a golden opportunity now this next run of games to solidify us, right, and be playing for a playoff contention team versus a play-in contention team. And so these couple of games, especially going into New England, this is a winnable game. Unfortunately, the ghost of last season still appears where there's opportunity.
Any team I support, man. If you're supposed to win it,
dude?
I don't know.
Freaking Spurs
England, man, and now Charlotte. Like we're supposed to win. I don't know.
Just quickly, Brian, just talk to us about what Charlotte can do this weekend to win.
I mean, beyond winnable, this is like New England's got 1 point in 5 games.
Yep.
This is like borderline a must-win game. This is like kind of the situation where they have to show up. I think they need to be super aggressive. That back line for New England right now is super rough. They're getting run ragged right now. Obviously, they still have Carlos Hill, super talented playmaker, but so far Charlotte have locked down playmakers. Lucho and Cucho both didn't score. So lock down Carlos Hill and be super aggressive against that back line.
If there was a game that Abada wanted to start against and actually make a name for himself, it's this game.
And Enzo, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Score predictions for that game?
3-1.
Oh, you stole mine, man. I 3-1. I think Charlotte wins 3-1. Normally I'm like 1-1 us and all that, but like I really think this one we're going to get 3-1.
Yeah.
The XG's got to become G right now.
Take the X and just be a G.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm going 1-0 with an Enzo goal.
Oh, yeah?
Let's back Enzo this weekend.
Yeah, you going to put some money on DraftKings or something?
No, I don't think I'm going to do all that.
How confident are you?
Not that confident. Yeah, the XG shows that it's still not a G. So.
He's like, but in the 80th minute, I might, dude.
Inside joke, folks.
Yeah. With that said, Lee, where can we find you at?
At COTFC Fan TV on all the socials. We drop the fan reactions.
I love those, by the way.
We do our Monday morning league updates, right? So you can kind of see it. We had a little ups and downs in there and all that. But yeah, follow us, and then always find us floating around town at a watch party somewhere or
for sure
outside the gate after the games.
Nice. And then Brian?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at BAM Mauer Media, and you can find all my written content at Topbin90.com.
Love it. And you guys know who I am, Jorge Gonzalez, Topbin90 on all our socials. Hopefully next time we're talking again is after 2 more positive results. Go!